some of the most powerful people in the world. It would be great if those things were not true. I would much rather live in that type of country and that type of world, but we don't. And for people like me, I was an average American. I never served in politics. I never even went to a Republican county meeting. I just didn't. My family, we own a construction company. I was busy raising 3 children, but I was always one of those Americans that was constantly pretty pissed off at my government, because I always felt like it was the government that caused many of our problems, whether it was regulations that were hard on our business, failures in Washington that led to, the economy having so many difficulties that would hurt our business and make it hard for us to feed our family. But it was just looking into just being willing to read on the internet and look past the mainstream news is where I would, and me and many others would stumble across all types of things. And I always felt like it's the right thing to do, to ask questions and look into these things and say, could this be true? And that's the kind of person I was. I was willing to just ask those questions. And many times asking these questions made me look crazy and I got labeled a conspiracy theorist and got called all kinds of names. And now I think it's shocked so many people. Jillian, I have to tell you, I've come across videos of women just weeping in their cars over what they've read in the Epstein files. I've come across videos of men saying that people need to be put in a wood chipper. I mean, people are losing their minds, rightfully so, over what has come out. And the most outrageous part, Jillian, is that the people in charge are not taking it seriously and are not investigating it. And it seems that no one will be held accountable. And that's the point where it's breaking Americans, is how can we read these things with our own eyes and read them on an FBI form, but yet the FBI and the Department of Justice and the administration and even the president himself is unwilling to take it serious. And so I think it's a really rough time for a lot of people.
I don't think that you can take it seriously. And here's the only reason I say that, not because it isn't real, but because it creates an existential threat to our way of life. And here's what I mean by that. I've started to kind of move down the road post-COVID into believing, obviously, that these monster corporations, be it BlackRock, all of these, like this handful of corporations that own everything, all the drug companies, all the food companies, and it's like State Street, BlackRock, and there's one other, I can't remember which one, and they own the controlling shares of every single friggin' company in the world. And what's even crazier is that when you look at who owns it's Vanguard. Okay.
Vanguard, yeah.
So when
which owns BlackRock, which
owns State Street, which owns Vanguard. They own each other. So all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, hold on. Who owns the controlling share of Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, blah, 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 blah. State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock. Who owns State Street? Oh, Vanguard and BlackRock. Who owns Vanguard, State Street and BlackRock? And it's all just one company, basically, that owns the controlling shares of everything. So you start to look into this post-COVID and you're thinking, all right, this is insane. This is bananas. But what you're told when all of this craziness unfolds, the pillaging and plundering of the developing world, the things like disaster profiteering, everything in my line of work when it comes to health and wellness, looking at the ways in which hundreds of billions of dollars flow in subsidies to processed foods and garbage, all of the stuff with healthcare that gets buried, all of this stuff, you're told, well, no one's evil. It's not like one person doing this, guys. It's just the way business works. You see, what happens is these companies have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders. So it kind of begets itself. Like where there's an opportunity to make money, these kind of crazy things are just what happens. But nobody is deliberately pulling the string. There's no puppet master. All of a sudden, you go into these Epstein emails and they are literally a handful of people talking to each other about how to control the world. And it's everyone. It's everything from the Clinton Foundation, the Gates Foundation, Enzo Capital, which is Larry Fink's kid, Josh Fink. So his connection to Larry Fink is through Josh Fink. Every single billionaire, Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, Lex Wexner, Elon Musk, politicians all over the world, royalty, bankers. So when you first discovered this, was this the Pizzagate thing that tipped you off? Or what was the first thing that you saw that was your red flag out of all of this crazy shit? Pardon my French.
Yeah. No, that's correct. It wasn't Pizzagate. It was actually earlier than that. It was truthfully just being a small business owner in the construction industry and understanding that no matter how hard we worked, we were really victims of the decision makers. And we weren't in the club. It's a very elite club, and we aren't in it. Many Americans, like I'm Gen X. I'll be 52 in May. Okay.
Same.
So we grew up. I think we grew up in the best time in America. I mean, being a kid in the 80s and growing up throughout the 70s and 80s, I think was the best. And we were taught that America is the greatest country in the world, that we are the freest people in the world, that no matter who you are, no matter your background, you can achieve the American dream. And for many, on many levels, that is true. I totally believe it. It's true. I've lived it in my lifetime. However, I think the awakening for many people, and I think you're right to draw the line at COVID. If we were to put a timeline out, the awakening really happened for most people at COVID because our whole world got shattered. And all of a sudden, everything came to a halt. Manufacturing lines stopped. Entire industries stopped. Schools stopped. Life stopped. Entertainment stopped. And for the first time, it was like us going back to kids where we didn't grow up with cell phones. We didn't grow up with the internet. We grew up in a time where we looked around and paid attention to the world around us and the people around us. And I think for all of us, it was the first time since, say, our childhood. And for a lot of adults, young adults especially, it was the first time ever in their lifetimes where they were forced to stop and look around and seriously ask, what the hell is happening?
Yes.
What is happening? And so I think that was a great awakening for many, but for me, it went back, and it was just always being willing to ask questions and just noticing. I think I've always been perceptive and just noticed things. And, I don't know for sure if Pizzagate is true or not true, but pizza references it is true that they use pizza references in pedophilia. That is a fact. And so is it wrong for people to have looked at Pizzagate back then and the information that came back and asked those questions? No, that wasn't wrong to ask those questions. I think what is wrong now is seeing these pizza references in the Epstein files and not asking those questions, like Pam Bondi saying, but the Dow is over 50,000.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Excuse me. We're talking about children. And I think I'm happy to know that I really feel, vindicated. The one thing that destroyed my political career was the Epstein files and fighting for the release of the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I will go with that the rest of my life and be so happy about it. And I'm happy to see that has also been the one thing, Jillian, that has brought the right and the left together in this country.
Yes.
Thank God. Because that's a moral, that was like a temperature check for all of us. And I truly feel so much better about America seeing the left and right come together and say, oh, hell no. We will not, we aren't going to tolerate this. We will not let it go. We will not move on. We don't care who is involved. We don't care what team, left, right, red, blue. We don't care. We don't care who it is. We want all of them held accountable. And thank God for that.
You know, what's funny is that they're all in it. That's why. And what I ended up taking away, it's like, oh, Barack Obama and the Clintons. And Trump is in there. I get it. He wasn't on the island and I understand all of that, but nevertheless, it is everywhere. Steve Bannon, it's all sides of the aisle.
Yep.
And here we are going to war with each other, which I have always said is a ruse. I'm like, this is a distraction. This culture war stuff is a trick, man. It's a trick to get you not to pay attention to what's really going on against all of us. And here you are being able to read all this shit. And I want to show you, I don't know if you've seen this one, because obviously there are millions of these correspondents. So this is so mind-boggling to me. We pulled... And I have an answer/comment regarding that for you. When can I call you today to discuss? Marjorie, how do we get rid of poor people as a whole? I have an answer.
Yeah, I see. This is where it's right for people to be freaking out. And why is Jeffrey Epstein the only one that was put in prison? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell the only one in prison? Like, these people should be on trial right now. Getting rid of poor people altogether, that's the most repulsive thing ever. And then putting all of our data, our identity, everything about our health measures and markers into a digital system is complete communism. That's like everything that we stand against as Americans, but even more so, doesn't it disturb you and probably everyone else that they're talking about weapons? They're talking about war.
Yes.
And but the main thing is it's about making a profit.
Yes.
And that's what it really was about for them, is how to make as much money as possible on a pandemic. And sadly, the reason why it doesn't totally shock me is because I served on the COVID Select Committee on House Oversight. And many of the forms and emails and the information that we dug up through our investigation was beyond anything I've ever imagined possible. And Anthony Fauci himself, when we deposed him, that man described what he called science. And I thought, this is the most evil shit I've ever heard of in my life. And to Anthony Fauci, and I don't call him doctor because he doesn't deserve to be called doctor.
You're
this
right.
is not a man that's for life saving. He is for killing people.
He deserves a jumpsuit. Yep.
And he described what he called science was creating viruses that make people sick and kill them in order to create the cure, to create the vaccine. In other words, playing God. And that is what he described us. And he described the whole thing with such pride. He was so proud of it because he deemed himself as a savior. It was like having he was a narcissist and has a savior complex. But you read it in that email, the same tone, the same attitude. And these people have been doing this. I would argue they've been doing this for as long as time. We're just seeing what it looks like in our lifetime. And I mean, we know that they go to places like Davos, and they have been doing this for decades, and they meet and they talk. The industry leaders and the politicians all over the world come together and plan the future of humanity. But the reality is all of them make a fortune off of it. And that's why you've got this extremely small percentage of very rich, powerful people that are all friends with each other. They all hang out together. They know each other's wives and girlfriends and husbands and boyfriends and children, and they go to parties together and they go on vacation together and they do really sick things together. And but it's because they all work together to basically pull the strings that control the world, that control our lives. And Jillian, COVID was the one that it wrecked me. It did, because you probably don't know this, but I think you're great because I have followed you and others throughout much of my adult life. I've got extremely into fitness. I apparently am really good at joining cults because I got into CrossFit. And yeah, when I go all in, I go all in. I ended up owning a CrossFit gym, competing, like all the stuff. And Maha, I love Maha so much. I went no casein, no gluten. I've done all of them. And I really believe in many of these, natural ways to be healthy. But having lived that lifestyle when COVID came around, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a flu. And yes, flu's always, there's going to be people dying. It's horrible, but we know who is vulnerable and we should keep them safe. Right. But shutting down the entire world. And the part that wrecked me, interestingly enough, because I've always been a big Trump supporter, was Trump was the one that shut down the world. He was president at the time, and it was 15 days to slow the spread. Well, that 15 days turned into, it turned into years. And for me, I acknowledged that right away. I went, this is the worst thing to do, is to shut down society. It's the most unhealthy thing to do. And but it was Donald Trump that did it. And then even worse, it was Republicans that came behind him and passed the CARES Act, which was like $5.2 trillion, which that was the start of the inflation climbing. And I had a hard time because I recognized that at the time, but it went against my belief system because I've always been very MAGA, always been very America first, and just hardcore in that line, and supporting President Trump like I always have. That was tough for me, but we can't be honest with ourselves, and we can't be honest with one another if we aren't willing to recognize that everyone is named in the Epstein files at some level and some capacity, and every single one of them owes answers to all of us, and many of them should be investigated, and many of them should be prosecuted, and they should go to prison.
Here's another one that I want to bring up that I have theorized about, and we have watched people, Patrick, Bet, Dave, a host of podcasters and independent journalists, Tucker, propose that the war in Ukraine was orchestrated on purpose, arguably, in order to grab all of Ukraine's resources. So they've got the breadbasket, which has historically fed all of Europe. It's the most valuable farmland, I guess, outside of Iowa in the world. Yeah. They've got minerals, all kinds of stuff. And the guy that has the contract to go in and rebuild it is Larry Fink, right? And it's all under the pretense of such a good guy. We're going to go in, we're going to rebuild. It's going to be amazing. But you're going, wait a second, hold on. And it turns out that they're now in a war and we give them all these weapons. And then it's like, but you owe that money back. And the World Bank is going to force you to give over your mineral rights and the land rights to the farmland. And you're thinking, this feels on purpose. Cut to the friggin' Epstein files, where all the way back in 2014, and I want to ask you about this family because I know you've spoken about them before. There are email exchanges between Epstein and Ariane de Rothschild, representative of Edmund de Rothschild Group, big banking family. And Epstein reportedly described the situation in Ukraine as offering significant financial potential, with some reports and headlines described this context as the coup in 2014 that they wanted to help facilitate, where they got a democratically elected leader kicked out of there. So this is all under the context of the Maiden events. And then they've got him talking to an unidentified woman saying that corruption in Ukraine is sophisticated, huge, quote, money will be made, and he wants her to become a, quote, female oligarch. He's trying to get a meeting with Putin at the time, but it got complicated because I guess they shot down a plane over Ukraine, the MH17. Then you have him again in 2019. You have Epstein again in 2019 talking to this guy, Miroslav Lajak, who was president of the UN General Assembly at the time, saying that he needs to intercede in the election there between Petro Poroshenko and Vladimir Zelensky. Intercede to do what? To make sure you've got a war that you can pillage and plunder. And the best part is that the whole time he's communicating about this to Larry Summers, who's the former U.S. Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, the former head of the National Economic Council under Barack Obama, the former president of Harvard University, and the longtime advisor to Wall Street, central banks, and global institutions. So long story short, all we know is this guy has been involved since 2014 in destabilizing Ukraine so they can all make money. And here you're being told that you're nuts for years that you're insane, you're crazy, it's all conspiracy, and it's all because, and I do think Putin is a horrible monster, but it's all just because Putin is a horrible monster.
Yeah.
How is tell me, sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah. No, you laid that out so well. And you know, when you lay that out, all I could think about is how many people have died in that war.
Right.
We don't even know the numbers, honestly. They throw out numbers, but we don't really know the numbers of how many young men have died, been forced to the front lines and died. It's actually horrific. You know, but honestly, it's a business model. So I like the way you laid it out because you know, these Epstein files, and Jeffrey Epstein seems to be magically at the center of every single major happening in the past 2 decades, which is incredible. And because our American news media is so horrible, most of us as Americans, we don't really know what's happening throughout the world. And the Ukraine war truly did start happening pre-2014. It was a civil war, a skirmish, and you know, constantly fighting back and forth in that Donbass region, which was an area of Ukraine that is Russian-speaking Ukrainians, and those Russian-speaking Ukrainians really wanted to be part of Russia. And so there was fighting back and forth over that area. Interestingly enough, the Donbass region also happens to be the region that is filled with all of those rare earth minerals and massive amount of natural resources and wealth. And so that's just another interesting factor. But our CIA, our government, was very much involved going back to 2014 and before that. In this building escalation that turned into a war between Ukraine and Russia. Just to note something, I voted no from the very beginning to fund any U.S. tax dollars to that war because I was just very much against it. And Ukraine is not a member of NATO, so we are not contractually bound. Even though I'm opposed to the war, we are not contractually bound to defend Ukraine. And you mentioned the breadbasket of the world. Yeah, Ukraine was called it's no longer, but it was called the breadbasket of the world. And Russia also happens to be a major producer of grains as well. And so that war has completely destabilized the entire world's economy and driven inflation based on that, and also how it changed energy and selling oil with Russia. It changed dramatically, and the U.S. They put sanctions on Russia and so forth. So that war is actually central to many of the problems that people don't realize. When you go to the checkout, your prices have gone up, and that war is one of the reasons why the prices of all kinds of goods have gone up. Unfortunately, it's that way. But no, this is a business model. And so these people, these extremely rich, powerful people, all these people named in the Epstein files, it wasn't good enough for them to run a business like most of us do, where we might create a product and we work to sell it in stores and get it on store shelves, or we create a service that we sell to Americans. They can buy our service, or maybe even internationally. They moved past that. And so they moved into literally a way to, and Ukraine's just one of them. There's many countries they've done this in, where they work with the CIA and intelligence parts of governments, and they go in and literally destabilize and provide regime change in order to create basically a playing ground where they can capitalize on it. And that is what everything you just read there was what they were lining up to do in Ukraine, and they haven't fulfilled it yet. You mentioned the Rothschilds. Well, they're a central piece of it because they're they're a part of banking. You need big banks to loan money to be able to create capital. And we're seeing the same thing, the groundwork being laid to happen in Gaza. With the major developments they're talking about being built there. And that's, to me, horrific because of how many innocent people have been killed there. But we've seen this happen over. And if people really think about it, it has happened over and over and over. And I think it's so extremely bad that I really hope that Americans hold our government accountable. It's the only way that it will ever change.
But how? Like that's the problem is when you look at I've been going on a deep dive to do a full expose on the COVID piece with Gates and Clinton that I'm going to put out next week. But the only thing I am missing is the connection to Wuhan. So when people are like, well, we got to prosecute. How? Like, you've got a fund that they're starting to do biosurveillance. So it's not illegal to do vaccine production and distribution. Not illegal. This censorship industrial complex that Gates orchestrated. He's the key architect, and it's technically not illegal the way that he's doing it. So basically, they lobby the government to silence a narrative, but because it goes against the First Amendment, they then outsource that silencing to NGOs and think tanks that then direct the social media platforms to quiet people. Like, you can't, there's nothing tangible to prosecute. And then, they're like, oh, gee willikers, here's that pesky pandemic we've been predicting for a decade. That's, by the way, man-made and engineered through gain-of-function research. But you can't find the link between, the Gates or this whole group creating that virus in particular. There's no link between them creating COVID and subsequently releasing COVID. All you know is it escaped the lab. And, we do these gain of function research experiments in order to build better vaccines down the road for a pandemic. You can't go after it. Like, it's impossible.
There's not like but there is a lot of evidence that they created the COVID SARS virus. They did early on, and I would say it was before 2019. They had patents for vaccines. They created this thing early on, not just in Wuhan. I think that's something that we don't want to be too hung up on COVID, because that was actually, my gosh, we're looking at 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It's what are they doing now? That's what kind of keeps me up at night. Having served on that committee, to me, it's clear in my mind. This virus was created. It whether it leaked on purpose or it leaked on accident, it did get out and it spread throughout humanity all over the world. And they magically had a vaccine to fix it. And I was so against the vaccine. I actually got banned on Twitter back in 2022 for an entire year. My personal account was banned because I had spoken out so loudly, like the FDA should never approve the vaccines. I said the vaccines are going to kill people. Like, I was nuts over it. And but let's ask this. We talked about Ukraine. Well, there's biolabs in Ukraine.
Yes.
What is happening now to those biolabs, and what was in those biolabs, and where are they now, and who's got it? And then here, just a couple of weeks ago, there was an Israeli man arrested for having some kind of biological vials and things that came from a lab, and I think he had them in the garage, and they had him linked to China, but he was an Israeli man. It's like, what is that all about?
I saw that. Was that out of Las Vegas? And it was like Ebola and COVID, and nobody talked about it.
No.
But the world is moving so fast that you're like, hold on, we're on to Epstein. Wait a second, this is happening. Hold on. I saw that, and I just didn't have a...
It was a blip. It was like a bloop. Here's a news story. It's like you said, the news cycle is moving so fast now that I call it outrage overload. It's like standing in the waves at the ocean, and the waves are hitting you in the face constantly. And just when you recover from one wave and you get the salt water out of your eyes and you can breathe, you're hit with another one. And it's just constant. And I don't think we're meant to be able to digest this type of information so fast.
Yeah.
So no, you're just like me and you and everybody else. It was like, wait, what was that story? And what happened to him? And what government is he linked to? And why did he have it? But it's the question is what is next? And the one that also concerns me, and this is Bill Gates and others, is, I'm one of those crazy people that doesn't like them spraying things in the sky.
I have that to talk to you about. Disaster profiteering talk. I used to think you were crazy with this. I literally would be like, okay, all right, sure. They're making hurricanes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it all turned out to be true. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yeah, it's insane and it's true. Yes, they can absolutely create weather. It's a real thing. Cloud seeding is real. It's actually very common practice. It happens all over the United States. It's not just our government, state governments, but also private entities, even ski resorts pay for cloud seeding because they make more money when there's plenty of snow on their slopes. And so they'll hire companies to do cloud seeding so they can hopefully get more snowfall. But there's many different types of technology to create weather, and this is very much an industry that has been very invisible and called conspiratorial.
Yes.
But it's not. It is honestly not. And our government, you can research it. I introduced a bill called the Clear Skies Act. If it had passed, it won't pass though because they won't vote for it. But it would make it a federal law. It would ban geoengineering. The one that is most concerning, more so than maybe creating too much rain that could create floods, or there was actually, they created or added to the amount of rainfall. And I forget what year it was, but Savannah, Georgia got hit. I mean, this is documented. This isn't a conspiracy theory, but it's actually documented. But it was decades ago that a hurricane, it actually hit Savannah after they had done a lot of cloud seeding, and the amount of rainfall was so horrific that people died in that hurricane. And so it is documented that it can get out of control. Happened over in the Middle East. Was it Dubai? I think they did a lot of cloud seeding over there, and they had torrential rainfall and they had heavy flooding. And over there in their news and the international news literally blamed cloud seeding and geoengineering for the reason why they had such horrific flooding. But in America, they're like, oh, you're crazy, But here's the one that I think this is extremely over the top, and Bill Gates is very involved in it, and they want to block out the sun. They are spraying stuff in the sky to block out the sun's rays. I believe the sun is healthy. I want sun. I think it gives us vitamin D. It provides nutrients to our soil. It helps our food grow. I mean, I'm just a big believer, and I think the sun is great. I don't want skin cancer, but the sun is great.
I'm just a big believer in the health benefits of our star that brings life to the planet. Like the fact that
does that make me crazy?
This is so crazy. The fact that you have to say it. Like I'm having like an existential crisis this whole week because I just cannot believe this is all happening.
It's real.
So why are we blocking out the sun? I'm sorry. What would be the benefit of that?
Because Bill Gates has made a fortune on the climate agenda, and it's more of that type of. They create these industries and they get extremely rich. I mean, look at Al Gore. Al Gore comes out with this whole freaking climate agenda thing, and look at how rich he got over the decades of all of this. And so Bill Gates this is his climate agenda and a way for him to make money. And they are actually, believe it or not, they are actually already doing it. They are 100% spraying it into the sky to reduce the amount of sunlight, block out the sun. And I think I think that's crimes against humanity, because if they were doing it in a lab, okay, and you're trying this out in a lab, fine, Bill Gates, go in your little warehouse and do whatever weird stuff you're doing, as long as it doesn't affect my life or my family's life and doesn't affect our soil and our food and anything, and our water or clean air. But if you can't, I don't give them permission. I don't give anyone permission to go try out something that could lead to detrimental effects on our health could lead to widespread disease or death or hurt our food supply. Like, to me, that's crimes against humanity. And I think everyone should say that.
Where are they doing this? You say they're already doing this. Where?
The UK. It is being done in the UK. Recently, and I need to look into it more. I can't say this for sure, but I think they were trying to do it in parts of the United States. But it is very much a new thing. It's not new. It's new to us.
Yep, I got it.
It's new to us. Yeah. So it's something that they're leaning into, and I think everyone should say no, you can't do this, and we don't give you permission to do this. Absolutely not. It's we don't live. Our Earth is not their lab where we get to be we're not the lab rats.
But so here's my question, though. We say no, but we vote for people like yourself to say no for us. Now you're telling me that you put forward a bill, which, to be fair, I vaguely remember. I feel like this was like within the last, like a year ago or so. I kind of remember this. Year. And this is when I woke up and was like, holy cow, is this real? Yeah. And you had people coming out and blowing the whistle and talking about crazy storms that were wrecking lives in the country. And I remember thinking, like, all right, I can't mentally process this right now. So, we're processing all these other things in my outrage overload. But I do remember that. And now you've got this bill, and we've all said no. You've put this forward, but you're telling me they're not going to vote yes on it. Why?
Well, here comes the black pill, and I'm sorry to be offering it. Here you go. It's Washington, Congress, and the Senate. Pretty much everyone elected, for the most part, would never vote for a bill like that because the people that donate to them would block it and tell them, do not vote for this. And this goes back to the world that everyone has gotten a peek look into through the Epstein files. The House and the Senate, on both sides of the aisle, most members of Congress and most senators are largely controlled by the richest donors in our country. And they're largely controlled by the lobbyists that represent the biggest industries in our country. And that is just a flat out fact. And once you are able to accept that, then it all starts to slowly fall into place. And that before I became a member of Congress, that wasn't something I understood. So just for you and your listening audience, I was extremely naive when I ran for Congress. I'm talking about I was the dumbest person on the planet. I genuinely believed that I could get elected and I could go to Washington and I could say, hey, we need to pass a balanced budget amendment because our debt is too much money. And I just believed that as a member of Congress, I could do things like that. Well, when I got here, I found out, oh no, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, Marjorie. You are dumb. You've realized you got to learn the ways of Washington. And there is very much an agenda in place, and there are controlling industries and controlling donors, no matter who is in charge. That's why a lot of the spending and appropriation bills look very similar in many ways, with just some arguments on each side with like social issues or certain different political agenda issues. But when you boil them all down, they fund all the same stuff. Basically, the basic funding components fund the military industrial complex. They fund big pharma. They give out the NGO and they give out the government contracts. And it will do that no matter which party's in charge. And somebody like me can't stop it. Mm-hmm. And so the hard reality that I have to tell you and people that are watching is you cannot vote your way out of this. It is not going to change. It will not change. And no matter, people can be mad this time, say they're mad at Republicans for XYZ, whatever it may be, and they get Democrats in there to control the House and Senate or whatever. Nothing's really going to change. You're still going to get most of the same effects. And say if you're a Republican voter and you just, like me, was very much against the 4 years of the Biden administration, you're like, oh, heck no, we're not going back to that. We're going to fight to keep Republicans keep the House and the Senate. Well, guess what? We're still going to get a lot of the same results. And when you get someone in, like I got in, I was not supported by anybody. As a matter of fact, I had like 36 Republican members of Congress were donating to my opponent when I first ran for Congress in 2020. Every Republican state legislature, except 2 in my district, were for my opponent. I mean, I had the whole Republican establishment against me. And then when I got in there, I was fighting my own party just as much as I was fighting Democrats. And I'll use Thomas Massie, who I love Thomas Massie, as an example. Everybody's fighting Thomas Massie right now.
I see it.
And it's terrible. But there's only a rare few that are actually representing their district and actually trying to do the right thing. And those are the people that the entire Washington establishment destroys. They will not let us be successful.
Fight because you feel it's impossible, because you feel you can do more outside of the machine. And I have questions about that a little bit later, because I still have more to cover with you in this realm. Yeah. But why not stay and fight?
Well, I'll explain it to you like this. And so I supported President Trump more than pretty much anybody.
Sure.
I stood by him after January 6th. I said he did not do that. I said he's still my president. He's the leader of our party. I campaigned all over the country with him to help him get elected. Spent millions of my own money supporting him and Republicans. I supported J.D. Vance. I was the first member of Congress to endorse him when he ran for Senate, and fought for him to be vice president. Like when I said I was all in, I mean I was all in. And as a member of Congress, I donated all of my dues literally at the beginning of every Congress to the NRCC. See, that's something you may not know. As members of Congress, we have to pay dues to our party. Democrats pay to the DCCC, Republicans pay to the NRCC. But most Republicans don't pay all their dues. I paid all of mine up front, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's a check. And I supported, oh my gosh, Jillian, I was all in. Well, when we won, and I was so happy we won, and I got to be chair of the DOJ subcommittee on oversight, which I was so happy over, because the waste, fraud, and abuse is one of my big issues. I can't take it. And I was like, this is finally our chance to do something. Mm-hmm. And most of my bills reflect executive orders that President Trump wrote. So I was like, oh, my bills are going to pass. I mean, this is going to be great. Finally, we're going to get something accomplished. And then we butted heads on only a couple of issues. I have a 98% voting record with the president. The first one was on a bill, the crypto bill. And the crypto bill had a little loophole in it that was sort of a backdoor to a central bank digital currency. That's something I'm very much against. I don't want a government or anybody to be able to turn on and off our bank accounts. And there was a group of us, I wasn't by myself. So there was a group of us that were pushing the speaker and we're pushing the president we got to fix this. We cannot have a loophole in place in law that could actually allow a future government to create a central bank digital currency and control all of our money. And it never got fixed. And so I voted no. I voted no to that bill. So that was my strike one.
Right.
Yeah, that was my strike one. But I didn't think that shouldn't be a big deal. I should be able to vote my conscience. I should be able to vote for my district. And then it was the first time when they bombed Iran. And I mean, believe me, I have no love for the Ayatollahs. And of course, I feel sorry for the Iranian people, but I'm just very anti-war.
I get it.
And I believe our tax dollars should go for America. We are in enough debt. Let's fix our country. And so that was strike two. I was opposed to bombing Iran. There's a lot of, but then when we came up against, there's some conveniences about a big government shutdown. Is it stops the House floor from doing business. And so just to shed some light on that. So the big fight was about the ACA tax credits. That is actually a really important issue. Like, health insurance costs us way too much money. It's ridiculous. Okay. Nobody can afford health insurance. House insurance, car insurance. It is outrageous. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest issues that our government should be working on. So I was screaming on the sidelines, hey, Speaker Johnson, Republican colleagues, Democrats destroyed our insurance industry with Obamacare. Then they added to the problem with the ACA tax credits. When is our party actually going to do something to fix this for Americans? Because nobody can afford it. And so that is a very important real issue. But it became the shiny object, and it became the big fight because Democrats needed something to fight on. Mm-hmm. They have been losing on every issue. And back at that time, that's an issue. And they had more support from Americans because Americans are saying we can't afford it. So it became an issue, and they shut down the government. But what happened at the time was there was a Democrat special election, and you have to have 218 signatures on a discharge petition to get a bill to the House floor. So there's only two ways a bill can be voted on. One, the speaker says, yes, let's bring this bill to the floor, and he can bring any bill to the floor he wants. Then the only other way is if the speaker won't bring the bill and you have 218 out of 435 members of Congress that say, you know what, we are going to override the speaker, right, and we are going to push to get this bill to the floor. That's how we got the Epstein files bill out. So we had when the government shut down, we had 217 signatures, but a special election happened and a Democrat got elected, and she said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sign the discharge petition. And she was the 218th signature. And Johnson, there was no reason for the House to be shut down. The Senate was the problem. That's where the fighting was over health care. That's where the House funded the government. We did our job. That went to the Senate. The Senate was the holdup. They wouldn't fund the government. But Johnson kept the House shut down for 8 weeks to prevent that new Democrat from being sworn in as a member of Congress to sign the discharge petition.
Oh my God.
That's what happened. That's why they drug it out.
This is insane.
Yes.
So once again, people didn't get paid. Nobody could make ends meet. Everything was in a state of chaos. To continue to try and protect the exact same elites that have committed these crimes against all. This is insane.
That's how bad it is.
This is insane. Okay.
Yes. And so this happens, and they have the big fake shutdown fight, which was fake, by the way, because Republicans at any time could have said, forget the filibuster, we're funding the government. But they didn't. And then the Democrats at any time could have voted on the exact same bill that they had already voted on to fund the government, but they didn't. And they created this healthcare fight, which has some legitimacy because healthcare and health insurance is a major problem. Right. But what was happening on the background was that it was all being delayed to release the Epstein files. Okay, so we finally come back. The House finally goes back in session. They fund the government, yada, yada. Mike Johnson swears every day that he's got a health insurance plan, which, by the way, he has never brought it out. That's another story. But we come back, and the Democrat, she gets sworn in. She signs the discharge petition, and then that ripened the discharge petition after 7 days, and we voted on that bill. Here's the interesting part. Okay. There were only 4 Republicans, only 4 of us that signed that discharge petition: Thomas Massey, myself, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. Now, what was happening in the background for months leading up to when we finally got it released is we were getting pressure from the White House. We were getting pressure from the speaker. Do not take your name off this discharge petition. And we're like, why? We're talking about the Epstein files. This is the ultimate promise. This is the ultimate way to provide transparency. This is the ultimate way to take it to the deep state and expose a whole criminal cabal of rich, powerful elites that I believe control everything. And guess what? Come to find out they do.
They do.
And So we're like, why would, so in the meantime, President Trump is calling it Epstein, the whole thing a hoax. Yeah. He's calling it a Democrat hoax. He won't have anything to do with the women. He still refuses to have anything to do with these women. So this whole thing is building. The women are saying President Trump did nothing wrong. They still say this. President Trump did nothing wrong. I know. Their attorney says Donald Trump's the only one that helped us. And guess what? That came out in the Epstein files, that he reported Jeffrey Epstein. Yep. So but Donald Trump is fighting it. President Trump is fighting it. President Trump is yelling at me. The White House is putting pressure on Nancy Mace. They take Lauren Boebert in a skiff. I don't even know what they said to her in there. They are attacking Thomas Massie, nonstop attacking Thomas Massie. And then one day I get a phone call from the president in September, and he is so mad at me. And he's yelling at me, and he's angry at me. And the fact he's like, you're supporting Rand Paul Jr., and he's chewing me out for signing my name on Thomas Massie's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And I'm trying to tell him, Mr. President, they say you did nothing wrong. Right. This needs to come out. Right. And so we're having this argument. And he tells me on this phone call, he's like, Marjorie, my friends will get hurt.
That's it. That's it. I mean, that is it. Obviously, that's it. Because they're all in here. Imagine the phone calls. It's everyone. It's every single person is on this freaking list. They're all there. Every billionaire, heads of state, Larry Summers, Peter Thiel. They're all in there. And you know what I remember? This is a bit of a sidebar, but also a precursor. Trump was the one that wanted to take down TikTok. Do you remember that? He was the one that was like, this is like a Chinese plant. This thing needs to be sunset. Night, TikTok. And everybody was having a meltdown about that.
I voted no to that one too. I voted no to the TikTok ban.
they gave him a bunch of money for his campaign. And all of a sudden, guess who saved TikTok? And the thing of it is, listen, a lot of my viewers get very upset, but I like, guys, I'm sorry, you guys get upset when we point out things about Donald Trump that are not great, but the reality is, I can't fold to audience capture, and you guys need to know the truth, and the truth is more important than tribalism. Do I think Trump is a better option than Kamala Harris? Oh my God, absolutely. But what I refuse to do, he is not a perfect human being, and the reality is that I've already seen it once. I remember with TikTok thinking, wait, you were the dude. You were the guy that initiated the whole night for TikTok. And now you're the guy that saved it because they donated to the campaign. And that's right. My guess is it's the same flip-flop times a million because imagine the phone calls. Everybody's life is going to be ruined. The most powerful people in the world. And by the way, Marjorie, when I look at this, I'm like, hold on. Like, you didn't actually raid the island. You didn't raid the ranch in New Mexico. Like, you didn't take the tapes that were left in the penthouse. You've redacted all of these files. There's supposedly another data dump that we're never going to see. What we've seen so far, I'm told, is the tip of this evil iceberg.
Yes, because there's 3 million more files that have not been released. And my understanding is those are worse. And out of the millions of files that have been released, a lot of it has been redacted that shouldn't be redacted.
Yes.
And so, yes, there's a lot more to come out. And yes, it's really bad. And it you know what? I totally agree with you. Like, I 100% support the Trump administration. I'm so thankful for the secure border. Yep. I am so thankful that our economy is stabilizing. There's so much to be thankful for. Of course, I support that. But it's like, everybody, stop being so blinded. You're not, I mean, are you in a cult? He's not a god. He is a man. And if we can't recognize the good and the bad in a man, then we're living a lie. And yes, Donald Trump is the same guy that shut down the country with COVID. He's also the same guy that fast-tracked the COVID vaccine, which I'm very much against. He's also the same guy, like you said, that came out against TikTok and then somehow made sure it was sold to one of his friends who's in the Epstein files. And if people aren't willing to take off their blinders and look at this, I'm sorry, you're living in a lie. You're choosing to live in a fantasy land, because that is the truth. It's we can say thank you for these policies and at the same time be like,
But
no,
not those. Don't do that.
No.
That is not okay. Here's the line. And you know what else that nobody ever talks about? And listen, I don't think this was nefarious by Trump at all. I think that he kind of he takes advice, not this particular thing I'm going to bring up. He takes advice from experts and it's like, sounds good. He's the one who lifted the moratorium on gain of function research in 2016. Obama shut it down because it was so dangerous. And Fauci went to him, this piece of crap, Fauci, who existed through every single administration, just like Jeff Epstein. And it was like, hey, we need this. And I'm sure Trump was like, yeah, sure, science, I love it, sounds good. I don't think he really comprehended it at the time. But he's the one who...
Did he?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. Now
that you've read the Epstein files, it makes you question, like, what did they plan on purpose? And what was just like you said, he said, that sounds great. He's from the baby boomer generation and they love every vaccine. And he thought, okay, this is going to save people's lives. I mean, who knows?
Yep.
We don't know. But with the Epstein files, how I feel about it is I fought for President Trump more than anyone. When every Republican in here in Washington, except a few, Matt Gaetz and a few of us, were like literally holding meetings to get rid of him and make sure he could never come back. I mean, they were done, absolutely done. I was fighting for him. And then we run into the Epstein files and I made a decision. Am I going to bow and take a command from the president that I helped get elected and have supported for 10 years? Am I going to just say, okay, I'm going to take my name off the discharge petition? Or am I going to stand for what is right? Women who were raped as teenagers. I'm a woman myself.
Yeah.
I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters. I have 3 children. 2 of them are my daughters. I'm going to stand with women who were raped as teenage girls. It's black and white to me. And so I refused to do it. And then next thing you know, here comes out a late night Truth Social on a Friday night that calls me a traitor, which is what, by our law, traitors are either imprisoned or put to death. And I'm like, you're calling... It was a very interesting name, a traitor. And what he meant is I was a traitor to him, not to the country and not to the American people, but to him. I was a traitor. And that resonated with me really hard. And then he said he's going to primary me. I'm like, oh, okay, now you're going to put, they have, I think, what is it, like $2 billion in their super PAC. And he's got a massive campaign machine. And they're going to put that on top of me like they're doing to Thomas Massie after all that I have done, because I'm standing with women who were raped as teenagers. And then it was a few days after that, I started getting serious death threats, and a pipe bomb death threat on my home, pipe bomb death threat on my family construction business, and then direct death threats on my youngest child, my son. And those started coming in. And it was dealt with so many death threats. We reported, I think, nearly 773 official death threats, and they have to reach a certain criteria before we can report them to Capitol Police. And I dealt with that. But when they came in on my own child, based on the president's language, and that's what the death threats were, it was because he called me a traitor. My son is going to be threatened to, be killed. So that came in, and I sent that death threat sent it to the president. I texted it to him. I texted it to J.D. Vance. I texted it to Kash Patel. I texted it to Susie Wiles and James Blair. And I said, the president's words are bringing death threats on my son. And Kash Patel said he was on it. Yeah. J.D. Vance was great, responded compassionately, said, we'll do everything we can. He was great. Never heard a word from James Blair or Susie Wiles, a woman herself and a mother and a grandmother, chief of staff. Never heard a word from her. The president himself texts me back and is very nasty and tells me that it's my fault, that this is totally my fault. He blames me for the death threats coming in on my own son, has no compassion, basically says, well, basically saying if your son gets killed, it's your own fault and you deserve it. That's basically his response to me saying, no, I am standing with girls who were raped as teenagers. And, Jillian, as a woman, and I want to set an example for other women and especially younger women, you should never allow any man to treat you that way. You should never tolerate that from a boyfriend or a husband or any man, a boss or anybody in your life. You should never have to do something morally wrong to bend to what they're trying to force on you. But when it comes to a point where they're basically saying, I don't care if your son dies. And I was like, this, when it comes to children, like this should never be an issue. And, but no, that's what he said. And this was 2 months. It was barely 2 months after Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. Right. And we were, Charlie was a friend for all of us. And it was so raw at that time. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm going to have to spend every penny I have to try to win my primary against the president that I supported. Not a single Republican that I serve with, who I donated to all of them and paid all of my dues, not one of them came out and publicly defended me. My own child's life is being threatened basically because of the president. What is this job? That became to me too much. It's too much. No one should have to deal with that. Why? And then what happens? So if we lose the House, I'm going to be expected to go in there and defend this president from impeachment? Like, are you serious? Right. After he treated me this way? And it's just like, it was all way too much. And I have integrity. I have self-respect, and I love my district. Oh my gosh, I've done everything I can for them. There was nothing more I could do this Congress. I already did all the appropriation requests, all the funding that I think is important for the district. That was already in place. There was literally nothing more I could do for them. And I was like, I'm not willing to die. I'm not willing to watch one of my kids get killed. I'm not willing to be treated this way. And that, I think, is extremely important.
I got to be honest with you. At this point, I think death is on the table for anybody and everybody.
Yes.
I really do. And I just cannot, to illustrate some of the evil from the people that you were determined to bring out into the light. We have some exchanges here, just random ones to illustrate the stuff like beyond. Listen, I completely think it is absolutely disgusting what has happened to these young girls, but it is unfortunately very apparent that this is even darker than that. Help me. What is the evil? How is it? How are this many people this evil? What?
I know. It's really, it's terrible. It's honestly, it's power and money. It truly corrupts and it rots people's souls. And I think that's honestly what everybody's getting to look at in these Epstein files.
But of course they can't come out, though. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but of course they can't come out. Didn't Bannon help Trump win in 2016? No wonder they can't come out. Look at this. I'm unraveling.
He said my friends. He said, my friends will get hurt.
Yeah.
He said, Marjorie, people you know. That's what he said. And so I'm telling you, like, I will forever be very, very firm in my decision because, a lot of people, when they will cave when they say people are going to be hurt by this. Well, you know what's the most important thing? People have already been hurt.
Right.
Like, and we don't even know the depths of it. We know, we know women were raped. They came out and told us publicly. They physically shook. I watched them physically shake and cry and as they told their stories for the first time in front of cameras, the most intimidating cameras you've ever seen, a mountain of press staring them down with cameras and microphones. And they told their stories, and some of them had told the stories for the first time publicly, and their families didn't even know. And they were telling the stories. They have so much shame. They're so guilty, and they have survivor's guilt. And that's just a piece of it. But what we're looking at when you dig into the massive layers of the connections between, my God, all of these people, like the richest, most powerful people in the world, the decision makers tied in with government leaders and intelligence and banks, and looking at how they operate, and they gave no care. They gave no care to horrors and evil and the things that Jeffrey Epstein was doing, even to the point, like I read this morning that Dr. Oz invited Epstein to some Valentine's Day party he and his wife were having in 2016. This is Dr. Oz that's currently serving in the Trump administration over Oz. Medicare. Exactly. But that was after Epstein had been convicted of pedophilia. So it's like, what? How do these people, and that's the hardest part. These are people that we may love, people that we have cheered for, people that I know I supported. And it's both sides of the aisle. Everybody has got to come to the horrible, nasty truth in our faces that they have all come together. And it was about making money. It was about influence. It was about power. And it is being part of the ruling world elites that have affected all of our lives. And if we as a country cannot swallow that down and hold our government accountable, Jillian, it's beyond, I think it's gone already, but it is past gone. If we cannot do that, seriously, if we can't say this, no, we've had it with every single one of you.
Yes.
Get the out of here. Like, what are we?
Can I ask you? Because I've noticed, and there's been talk, right? And I've made notes on this. Tell me where I'm right and I'm wrong, that there's a movement, and you're a part of it, to bring together a left-wing economic populism and a right-wing social populism that looks something like the following, right? So like an economic philosophy that champions the common person against elites, corporations, billionaires, and the financial establishment, right? So the core belief is that, which I'm with you. I'm with you on this. The economic system is rigged by the wealthy to exploit the working class. Key goals: redistribution of wealth, so higher taxes on the rich and the corporations to fund public services. Tell me if I'm getting this right or wrong. Strong social safety nets, universal health care, free college, robust social security, labor power, strengthening unions and worker protections, protectionism, opposing free trade deals for fair trade deals. And then on the right-wing social populism, a cultural philosophy that champions the people, often defended by nationality, ethnicity, or tradition against a perceived cultural elite, academics, the media, progressive activists. The core belief is that the nation's traditional identity, values, and security are under attack by globalists, immigrants, and woke culture. I'm there on the undocumented immigrants. But with that said, this is for people who feel economically abandoned and culturally alienated. Do you feel like this is a thing? And if so, are you a part of it?
I haven't ever heard it. I haven't heard it read out like that before, and so I don't know that I subscribe to all of those policies. What I am 100% for is pulling the left and the right, the American people, pulling us back together. That's the America I love. This was before I got involved in politics. I was friends with everybody. We all were. Politics did not reign over our family get-togethers, our social events, the freaking Super Bowl, concerts. My God, everything. We had life, and it was so fun. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. I want to go back to the days of the government can be seen but not heard. Not heard. I don't want to hear a fucking thing you say. Shut up. Like, I want that. Now, what does it look like policy wise? I'm one of those got to get in the granular details and like read the actual legislation or the policy description and analyze, well, how does that affect us? Can we actually afford that? I'm right. We're $40 trillion in debt, and we're 7 years away from Social Security being insolvent. Like, these are major problems. So like for as far as like the economic policies, I'd have to get more into to understand. But I think that what I want to see is I just love people. I love all the people. I don't care what group they are. I don't care their race. I don't care whatever their sexual this. I don't care about their religion. I just think that people are so great that we need to pull ourselves together, and we have to hold our government accountable. That's what our founding fathers told us to do. Like, it's a mandate. Hold your government accountable. And we have lost ourselves. Yeah. We have totally lost ourselves and been easily lulled and distracted into a world where we're just too busy, or we're just too, I don't know. The American people have lost our identity. We come from our ancestors are the same people that took down the most powerful king on the planet simply because they were pissed off about 3% taxes on their tea. Like, they were badasses. Why can't, let's get back to that kind of thinking, Okay, we've got our government's a bunch of pedophiles and they're all in it together and they're eating children. Like, hold on. And our taxes are way past 3%. Like, we should be really, really mad, really, really mad. And so I'm interested in, let's pull a movement together across the country that says enough.
Okay, so what do we do? So we're listening to you, right? We want to lay down our tribalism at the door for a minute here, and we're all starting to wake up to the fact that this culture war is a friggin' ruse and a distraction, because this cabal is real, very clearly. It's all in the emails now. The show's over. These go back years. This is real. This is happening. These are crimes against all of us as humans, right and left, every color, every religion, so on and so forth. Let's unite over this. Come on, team. We've got a moment. Let's go. How, though? How? When Thomas Massey is being crucified, when you're exiting stage right, when John Fetterman, I don't know if you like this guy or not, but I do see his ability to kind of call out bullshit where he sees it. I don't know his policies, but I appreciate that he's willing to say, hey, not all Republicans are Nazis. The guys that go against the grain, they get primaried. And I have a feeling that if they make it past that, they will get disappeared. So how?
Well, it's not going to be one thing that's going to fix it. And we have to all realize that this could be the hardest thing that any of us do in our lifetime. Because certainly when we've watched any people throughout history and they've made major changes to their government or major changes to the trajectory of their country, it was not easy. It just wasn't. But truthfully, if we look at one real fact, the American people are the ones that have the power. They pay all the taxes. Yeah. They donate and vote to put these politicians into power. So when the American people recognize that they really have the power, then they have the power to begin a series of statements that lead to organized events, that leads to organized actions, that reins in our government and says, no, we're not going to tolerate this. And that's what I believe in. And do I have a plan laid out? No, I don't have a plan laid out, but I believe it takes many people coming together to create that plan. I don't think one person can do it on their own. And but I think it's a willingness. And I realized something. I was like, I'm fighting this so hard, and I'm kind of on the battlefield by myself, and that's not cool. I don't really want to be out here fighting by myself. If nobody else is fighting, nobody else is willing to do this, then why am I out here sacrificing myself? So it really takes a lot of people. It can't take, just a handful. It really has to be the American people recognizing that we have a problem and the problem's going to get real ugly really fast. And like I said, think about this. Social Security is insolvent in 7 years. 7 years. That's crazy. 7 years. Social Security is insolvent. So this generation, the baby boomers, not the rich ones, a lot of them are really poor that live off of their Social Security checks. They're not going to be getting those Social Security checks in 7 years. And me and you, our generation, well, we're screwed.
Yep.
And then the kids, forget it. Right. They're never going to get a penny. And like, this is just one little problem that no one talks about. But here we are, we're supposed to be, I don't know. We're supposed to be looking at, we're getting stuff thrown in our face that we can't even mentally digest.
No, it's almost impossible. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
not an easy fix. We've hit a phase in our history that things are getting very bad, and it's not an easy fix. And I'll go back to the generation thing. Like, I love my parents' generation, baby boomers. Like, we there's so many things we love about them, that they're great. But man, their generation, I really blame their generation, the ones that were in control. They created all our problems. They did. Yeah. And they will not give it up.
No.
When I served in Congress, these people are old. I'm talking about nursing home old. They should not be in public old. And then that sounds very cruel.
No, it's true. We've all seen it. I know exactly who you're talking about. We all know who you're talking about. They could barely put a sentence together. Yeah.
Yes. Wheeled in.
Yeah.
And then they barely can stand up, and it's like, they can't walk. Why are we letting them vote?
Yep.
Like, guarantee you they can't drive a car. Yeah. I guarantee you they cannot. I bet their driver's license has been taken away, but they're running the country.
Yeah.
I've watched, you wouldn't believe this one, many members of Congress, I can't tell you how many late nights were on the House floor voting, and they're drunk. They have been drinking, they're slurring their words. It's terrible. And this is what's running your country. And then there's people in there that are just down and outright stupid. They're not, the only thing they can do is get elected, and that's how they're going to get their paycheck, and they will stay in there until they're in the wheelchair. And they should not be running the country. But that's the reality.
Yep. Like, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of it. I mean, I've seen the people that don't know what they're doing. I've seen the people that hate America. I've seen the people that clearly are in the throes of severe cognitive decline. Didn't know the alcoholic part. Not surprised.
And drugs.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now, what is next for you?
Oh, for me, I'm having a great time. I went through I would say the hardest time of my life was running for Congress and being here for 5 years. I lost my father during that time to cancer. I went through a divorce. I was on the news every single day with news stories that I was horrified, like, oh my God, they are flat out lying.
Yep.
My friends and family would send me like, I can't believe they're saying this about you. This is absolutely not true. And I'm like, I mean, that was my day in and day out. No, I am very much, I've only been out of Congress since January 5th. So it's been barely over a month. I am seeing all my friends and family. I'm enjoying the heck out of that. And I'm honestly doing one day at a time right now. But I am interested in using my voice. I don't know what that looks like. I am interested, especially in our kids' generation, Gen Z. I mean, that's the generation I care about the most. And I very much am interested in this left-right coalition that says, screw all of you, to both the Democrats and the Republicans.
I like that.
And says we are going to make our demands. This is what we demand. And so how that develops, I'm not sure.
Interesting. Well, I'll be following it very closely. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't? I know you actually have a heart out. I could keep you for hours, but is there anything I should have asked you that I missed?
No, I think we had a great conversation. I would add one more thing is that don't fall into the doom cycle.
No,
the world is not ending. Or at least I don't think. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm like, Maybe it is. Who knows?
Today, hopefully not ending today.
Yeah.
This week.
Who knows? But I think that's the most important thing is don't allow this stuff to rob you of your joy and your happiness in life. Like, put it down. Just it's healthy to put it down. Get outside, touch grass, go do something fun, have a real conversation. Because I think where we're at right now, a lot of people are either overwhelmed by what they're seeing and reading in the news, or it's actually done something really bad and it's pushed a lot of people out to completely check out.
Yeah.
And you can't totally check out because then we really can't fix it then.